I was chatting with a buddy the other day who's just bought his first piece of metalwork gear and was freaking out about splurging on the right welder. He'd seen a bunch of flashy ads, read a couple of vague reviews, and was stuck between a cheap entry-level stick welder and a professional-grade machine that would cost as much as a small car. He asked me, what should I actually get that won't leave me frustrated after a few weeks? I could feel the hesitation, the fear of spending hard-earned cash on something that might sit idle because it can't handle the projects he really wants to tackle. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into the Forney 415250MP Pro, the first thing that struck me was that it's marketed as an all-in-one solution, MIG, TIG, and stick welding all from a single cabinet. For a hobbyist who wants to experiment across different processes without buying 3 separate machines, that sounds like a huge convenience. But the real question is whether that convenience translates into everyday reliability, and whether the compromises that come with a multi-process unit matter for the kind of work you'll be doing. Let's break down who actually benefits from this setup. If you're someone who does occasional backyard projects like repairing a garden fence, fixing a broken metal chair, or doing a few custom art pieces and you like the idea of dabbling in both MIG for quick sheet metal work and TIG for thin stainless or aluminum parts, the Forney 415250 fits nicely. The fact that it can run on standard 120-volt household outlets means you don't have to invest in a heavy-duty 240-volt circuit, which is a common barrier for beginners. The unit also lists a power output that's sufficient for mild steel thicknesses up to about inch in MIG mode and thin sheet aluminum in TIG, so you won't be constantly hitting the out-of-range wall. On the flip side, if you're a professional fabricator or you regularly need to weld thick structural steel, the power ceiling becomes a clear limitation. The 250 amp rating is respectable for hobbyist use but falls short when you need to maintain a steady arc on inch plates or run continuous welds for a long day. In those scenarios, you'd likely find yourself stepping back to increase the amperage, and the machine may struggle to keep a stable weld pool. So anyone whose daily grind involves heavy-duty, production line welding should look past the Forney and aim for a dedicated 240-volt, higher amp unit. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths that actually show up when you plug this thing in. The first thing I noticed is the user-friendly interface. The control panel is laid out with separate knobs for each process, plus clear digital readouts for voltage and amperage. For a first-timer, that's a relief. No cryptic menus, just turn the dial to the desired current and you're ready to fire. The multi-process capability also means you can keep the same set of accessories for most jobs, a standard MIG gun, a TIG torch, and a stick electrode holder all hook into the same output, saving you cabinet space and the headache of swapping out power modules. Another concrete advantage is the built-in safety features. The unit has an automatic thermal overload shutoff, which trips if the internal components heat beyond safe limits. In practice, that means you can run a few minutes of continuous weld without worrying about melting the internal wiring. It also sports a grounded case and a clear hot indicator light, which nudges you to stay aware of the voltage present, something that new welders often overlook. There are also hidden trade-offs that aren't advertised on the box. Because the machine packs 3 processes into a single housing, the internal transformer has to be a compromise. When you switch from MIG to TIG, you'll notice a slight lag as the machine reconfigures its output. It's not a massive delay, but if you're used to a dedicated TIG unit that's always at the right setting, that pause can feel a bit annoying, especially when you're trying to finish a thin-walled tube and the heat input needs to be precise. Also, the duty cycle, how long you can weld before the machine needs to cool, sits around 30% at the upper end of the amperage range. That translates to roughly 3 minutes of welding followed by a 2-minute cooldown. For a casual weekend project, that's fine, but if you're trying to finish a larger frame in one sitting, you'll need to plan pauses. Compatibility is another piece of the puzzle. The Forney 415250 accepts standard 0.030-inch MIG wire, which is readily available at most hardware stores. The TIG side works with both AC and DC, allowing you to weld aluminum as well as steel, but you'll need to purchase a separate foot pedal if you want precise amperage control. The stick mode supports the common inch electrode, so you can fall back on a rugged, low-tech weld if power conditions get finicky. What's helpful is that all three processes use the same power input, so you don't have